August 15, 1945. Across the world, people celebrated the end of World War II. Soldiers returned home. Cities began to rebuild. But on a small island in the Philippines, one man never accepted that the war was over, hidden deep in the jungle. He continued fighting for nearly 3 decades, believing every announcement of peace was an enemy trick. His name was Hiro Onoda, and this is one of the most unbelievable true stories in modern history. Hiro Onoda was born in Japan in 1922. As a young man, he wasn't chosen to become an ordinary infantry soldier. Instead, he received specialized training in intelligence gathering and guerrilla warfare. His instructors drilled one principle into every recruit: never surrender, never give up your mission, and never stop fighting until a direct order comes from your commanding officer. These instructions were meant for desperate wartime situations, but for Onoda, they became a lifelong promise. In late 1944, he was sent to Lubang Island in the Philippines. American forces were advancing quickly across the Pacific, and Japan's military position was growing weaker every day. Before Onoda departed, his commander gave him one final order: stay behind enemy lines, gather intelligence, sabotage enemy operations whenever possible, and under no circumstances surrender. Onoda accepted the mission without hesitation, unaware that this single order would shape the next 29 years of his life. By late 1944, the Pacific War had turned against Japan. American forces were capturing island after island, moving closer to the Japanese mainland. To slow their advance, Japan sent small intelligence teams to remote islands. One of those men was Second Lieutenant Hiro Onoda. His destination was Lubang Island in the Philippines. Before he left, his commander gave him an order unlike any other: you are forbidden to die by your own hand. No matter what happens, you will survive. We will come back for you. Those words became more than military orders. To Onoda, they were a promise that could never be broken. In February 1945, American troops landed on Lubang Island. The fighting was short but intense. Japanese defenses quickly collapsed. Many soldiers were killed while others surrendered. But Onoda disappeared deep into the jungle with a small group of soldiers. From that moment on, the jungle became his battlefield and his home. In August 1945, Japan officially surrendered. Emperor Hirohito announced the end of the war over the radio. Across Asia, millions of soldiers laid down their weapons. But deep inside the jungles of Lubang Island, Onoda never heard the broadcast. Months later, aircraft began dropping leaflets into the jungle. The papers clearly stated that the war had ended and instructed Japanese soldiers to surrender peacefully. Onoda picked up the leaflets, studied them carefully, and then made a decision that would change his life forever. He believed they were fake. To him, they were nothing more than American propaganda designed to lure him out of hiding. He tore them apart and continued his mission. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into years. Hidden beneath the dense jungle canopy, Onoda survived by adapting to his surroundings. He searched for wild fruit, gathered coconuts, caught fish in nearby streams, and occasionally stole rice from local farms under the cover of darkness. Every distant gunshot, every airplane overhead, and every unfamiliar sound convinced him that the war was still continuing. The outside world had moved on, but inside the jungle, Onoda remained a soldier following his final order. As the years passed, search teams repeatedly entered the jungle, calling Onoda's name through loudspeakers. They even left family letters and photographs behind, hoping he would finally come home. But Onoda believed it was all part of an elaborate enemy trap. Every leaflet, every voice, and every message only strengthened his determination. If his commander had not personally ordered him to surrender, then the mission was not over. While the world entered a new era, Onoda continued living in the past, alone, armed, and convinced that World War II was still being fought. By the early 1970s, nearly 30 years had passed since the war ended. Most people believed Hiro Onoda was dead. But one young Japanese traveler refused to believe it. His name was Norio Suzuki. He traveled to the Philippines with a simple goal: to find Onoda alive. Against all odds After just a few days of searching, Suzuki finally came face to face with a mysterious soldier hidden deep inside the jungle. But there was one problem. Onoda still refused to surrender. Norio Suzuki returned to Japan with an unbelievable story. He had found Hiro Onoda alive. But Onoda made one thing absolutely clear. He would only surrender if his former commanding officer personally gave him the order. The Japanese government searched for Major Yoshimi Taniguchi, who was now living a completely different life. In March 1974, nearly 29 years after the war had ended, Taniguchi traveled to Lubon Island. Standing face to face in the jungle, he gave Onoda the final command. Your mission is over. You are relieved of all military duties. On March 10, 1974, Hiro Onoda finally stepped out of the jungle after nearly 29 years. Wearing his faded military uniform and carrying his rifle, he formally surrendered to Philippine authorities. The rifle still worked, his sword was still polished, and his military discipline had never faded. News of his surrender spread around the world. To millions of people, Onoda was no longer just a soldier. He had become a living symbol of loyalty, duty, and extraordinary power of belief.